Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I continue to bring you the story of James and Diep, a quiet journey filled with lingering emotions, where the smallest feelings carry a lasting weight. In the previous episode, Diep and James spent a gentle winter together with little Nee. It wasn't a dazzling season or one full of dramatic events, but rather slow-moving days that allowed warmth to emerge from the simplest, most ordinary moments. They also attended the intimate wedding of lytutien Sam, a ceremony without extravagance, yet rich in laughter, soft lights, and moments that gently softened everyone's hearts. In that space, surrounded by blessings from friends and family, Diep and James stood silently beside each other. No words were needed. A single glance, a hand held just tightly enough, was enough for both of them to understand that after all the storms they had endured, they were still here, together, calmer and steadier than ever. After the wedding, Diep and James joined everyone at the housewarming celebration of Lee and Sam. The new home wasn't large, but it was filled with the warmth of a beginning. The gifts exchanged carried more than material value. They held quiet wishes for a newly blossoming married life. Diep smiled as she watched Sam busy in the kitchen, while Lee's happiness was impossible to hide. Standing beside Diep, James offered his congratulations, feeling something difficult to name, joy for his friends, and at the same time, a glimpse of a future image of his own, still unclear but enough to stir his thoughts. The gathering ended gently, leaving each person with a sense of reassurance, as if everyone had taken a small step closer to the life they hoped for. As the year drew to a close and the festive atmosphere slowly faded, life for Diep and James gradually returned to its familiar rhythm. Rushed mornings, weary afternoons after work, simple yet sufficient meals, everything repeated itself quietly, without noise or major upheaval. Yet beneath that calm surface, silent pressure still remained. James's father had yet to accept Diep. The opposition was no longer openly harsh, but it appeared in different forms, subtle, persistent, and tiring for anyone without enough patience. Even so, Diep and James chose to stay together. They didn't argue loudly to prove anything, nor did they walk away in silence. Instead, they learned to face every challenge with composure. There were days when the pressure felt overwhelming, moments when exhaustion made them want to retreat, but they still sat down together, speaking in short, sincere sentences. No distant promises, no grand visions. Diep and James built their small home slowly yet steadily, step by step, believing that as long as they continued to walk side by side, everything else would eventually find its way forward. In that small house, little Nee was always the most precious presence, the quiet anchor that both Diep and James turned toward every single day. Though Nee was not their biological child, there was never a boundary in the way they looked at her or cared for her, never a trace of the word adopted in their hearts. Their love for her came naturally, without explanation, without the need to prove anything. In the smallest details, they gave Nee both tenderness and a full sense of responsibility. Every meal was prepared with care, each spoonful offered slowly, every sleep gently soothed by a familiar voice. When Nee laughed, the house seemed a little brighter. When she slept peacefully, both Diep and James felt their hearts grow lighter, as if the exhaustion of the outside world could be set aside, even if only for a while. There were days when pressure still lingered, when problems remained unresolved, but just seeing Nee playing quietly in her room or hearing her soft voice calling out was enough to ease those worries. Nee didn't need to do anything extraordinary, her mere presence became the reason Diep and James kept moving forward. Difficulties, incomplete looks from the outside world, and even the silent opposition that still existed all felt lighter when they remembered they were protecting something truly important together. In that house, Nee was not just a child being cared for, she was the bond that held them together, the center of the peace that Diep and James carefully preserved day by day. Today, the small house felt warmer than usual. Not because of anything remarkable, but because the atmosphere of the year's end was quietly spreading into every corner. Diep and James worked together to clean and decorate the house, preparing to welcome the new year. Everything unfolded slowly, without haste, as if they both wanted to linger in this moment just a little longer. James carefully hung each string of lights on the wall, adjusting them until they sat just right, while Diep wiped down the small table and placed a few simple yet fresh flowers on top. The space wasn't dazzling, but every detail carried its own gentle warmth. Nearby, little Nie sat playing, stacking her toys while watching the adults. From time to time, James turned to tease her with a few soft words, making Nie burst into laughter. That laughter echoed through the quiet house, not loud, but enough to soften the air. Watching the scene, Diep sometimes simply smiled, sometimes paused her hands for a few seconds, as if to fully imprint this ordinary moment into her memory. There was no loud music, no bustling crowd, only the soft glow of yellow lights, slow movements, and the presence of three people sharing a small space together. Today's atmosphere didn't resemble a lively celebration, but rather a warm pause before stepping into the new year. In that house, everything felt just right, enough light, enough laughter, enough peace to make the heart feel at ease. And amid those seemingly simple tasks, Diep and James remained quietly by each other's side, with little Nie continuing through the final days of the year in a gentle, unhurried way, as if all the most important things were already right there before them. While the house was still filled with warm lights and the soft laughter of little Nie, Diep's phone suddenly rang. The familiar sound wasn't urgent, yet it was enough to make her pause. She glanced at the screen and hesitated for a brief moment when she saw Lie's name appear. In that instant, everything around her seemed to slow down slightly, as if the call carried something out of the ordinary into this peaceful late-year afternoon. Diep answered. Lie's voice came through the line, low and steady, yet subtly different from his usual tone. Without lingering too long, he explained that he was calling Diep first because she and Sam were especially close. In every sentence, Lie tried to keep his voice calm, but Diep could clearly sense a mixture of joy and worry intertwined beneath the surface. Then the good news was finally spoken: Sam was pregnant. The news arrived unexpectedly, gentle, yet deep, like a small ripple spreading through the listener's heart. Diep tightened her grip on the phone for a moment, unsure how to react, feeling only a soft heaviness of happiness settle in her chest. Before that joy could fully sink in, Lie continued, his voice slower now. He was about to leave on a long assignment to handle a major drug-related case. This trip was unlike any before. The length of time away was uncertain, entirely dependent on how the investigation unfolded. Lie didn't go into detail about his work, but his tone alone was enough for Diep to understand the seriousness of what lay ahead. The happiness of a child on the way now came paired with a very real, very close concern. Lie admitted that he wasn't at ease leaving Sam alone for such a long time. Pregnancy made her emotions more sensitive, and she needed someone by her side, someone to talk to share the small, everyday things. That was why he hoped Diep could stop by from time to time, keep Sam company, and be there for her as the close friend she had always been. It wasn't a heavy request, but a wish rooted in deep trust. Lie trusted Diep, her gentleness, her patience, and the care she always gave to those she loved. Diep listened in silence. When the call ended, she didn't speak right away, lowering the phone slowly instead. For a few brief seconds, she seemed to be rearranging her emotions. The happiness for Sam, the worry for Lie, and the quiet sense of responsibility now resting on her shoulders all surfaced at once, not loudly, but enough to make her thoughtful. She turned to look at James. Their eyes met naturally, without the need for long explanations or questions. James looked at Diep and instantly understood that the call had been more than a simple check-in. He didn't speak first or rush her. The silence between them lasted only a few seconds, yet it carried no weight. In that pause, Diep clearly felt the familiar agreement in James's gaze, his readiness to share and shoulder whatever needed to be done alongside her. No lengthy discussion, no weighing of pros and cons, both of them already knew this was the right thing to do. Diep gave a small nod, almost instinctively. James responded with a slight nod of his own. The decision was made in silence, quick, steady, and certain. Not out of obligation, but out of the bond formed long ago between people who had weathered many ups and downs together. In the small house, the lights remained on, little Nick continued to play nearby, and life moved on in its familiar rhythm, only now, in Diep and James's hearts, there was one more thing to consider, to arrange, and to walk through together. After that call, Diep and James didn't talk much about the decision they had made, yet in the smallest things that followed, both of them quietly moved toward the upcoming visit. They agreed to see Lee and Sam soon, not letting their promise remain just words spoken over the phone. Diep carefully thought about a small gift, nothing elaborate or showy, just enough to express her congratulations and care for Sam during this special time. To Diep and James, the value of the gift didn't lie in its price, but in the sincerity placed within it. It was their way of cherishing relationships that had walked with them through many stages of life, from difficult days to the calmer present. The day of the visit arrived in a gentle atmosphere. When Diep and James appeared at the door, Lee and Sam were already there to welcome them. Smiles spread across both of their faces, unforced, free of formality, filled with genuine happiness at seeing close friends again. Sam seemed different from before, not because of any obvious outward change, but because of the softness reflected in her expressions and gestures. Every movement she made was slower, more delicate, as if she were naturally adjusting to a new role quietly taking shape within her. Lee stood beside her, his gaze full of care, yet also carrying a sense of reassurance as he saw Sam embraced by such warmth. The four of them sat together in the familiar space, without the need for formalities. The conversation began with simple, everyday questions and gradually drifted into small stories from daily life. No one was in a hurry, no one tried to steer the talk in any particular direction. Laughter rose naturally, woven together with comfortable silences, moments when simply sitting side by side already felt enough. Diep listened as Sam shared, nodding now and then, smiling softly, while James joined in with short but well-timed remarks that made the atmosphere feel even closer. During that meeting, Sam appeared far more at ease. The usual tension and worry were gone, replaced by a rare sense of calm, as if she had been allowed to set her concerns aside for a while. Having Diep by her side, someone close enough to talk to and confide in without hesitation, brought Sam a quiet kind of comfort. Lee observed it all in silence. He didn't say much, but his eyes followed every moment, every small reaction from Sam, and gradually, his heart felt lighter. The presence of Diep and James didn't just bring joy to the gathering, it also carried the reassurance Lee desperately needed. Watching Sam smile and speak so freely, Lee understood that the weight in his heart had eased, at least a little. He knew the upcoming assignment would not be easy, knew he would have to leave this home for an uncertain length of time. But right now, in this moment of the four of them sitting together, Lee felt a rare sense of steadiness. That reassurance didn't come from grand promises, but from the very real presence of Diep and James. Lee knew that once he set off on his mission, Sam wouldn't have to face long days alone in silence. She would have two friends ready to visit, to talk, to listen, and to stay by her side in the most natural, unpressured way. It was a quiet peace, unremarkable on the surface, yet strong enough for Lee to trust that everything behind him was resting in reliable hands, as he prepared to move forward on his own path. Amid those seemingly ordinary final days of the year, when everything moved slowly and followed familiar rhythms, a new journey quietly began. There were no clear signs, no dramatic turning points to startle anyone, yet within every relationship, every small decision, every exchanged glance, something was subtly shifting. Diep, James, Lee, and Sam each continued with their own lives, but the threads connecting them had grown tighter and deeper, as if fate itself were gently guiding them toward a new chapter. For Diep and James, these were days that felt both peaceful and filled with reflection. They continued caring for little Nee, continued building their small home with patience and understanding, yet their hearts now carried additional concerns. Responsibility toward their own family, care for Sam during this sensitive time, and the pressures that had not completely faded from James's family, all of these intertwined. They did not clash, but coexisted. Their lives, therefore, were not perfectly calm, but flowed steadily, a current where every choice required thoughtfulness and companionship. For Lee and Sam, the joy of welcoming a new life came hand in hand with many emotions. Happiness, worry, hope, and unnamed unease all appeared at once. Lee prepared for the journey ahead with the mindset of a man carrying greater responsibility than ever before. Sam stayed behind, stepping into a new phase of her life, no longer alone, yet still unable to avoid moments of quiet solitude. At this time, the presence of Diep and James was more than friendship, it became an important balance, keeping everything from tipping into loneliness. The final days of the year, therefore, were no longer just the closing of a cycle, but felt like a gentle threshold. Everything behind them was rich with experience, while everything ahead remained undefined. No one knew exactly what awaited them, only that each person was moving forward with subtle changes taking root within. Quiet, undramatic, yet enough to signal that the path ahead for Diep, James, Lee, and Sam would not simply remain in the calm they currently knew. And within that quietness, the story continues to unfold, leaving just enough space for hope, for challenges, and for things yet to be named. If you're curious about what lies ahead for them, be sure to watch the next episode for more details. Don't forget to walk alongside this story, to leave your thoughts and blessings for Diep, James, Lee, and Sam, because sometimes, the audience's shared warmth becomes a beautiful part of the character's journey as well.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Đang làm video. Bây giờ thì mình đang chỉnh sửa. Cảm ơn mọi người, hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở video sau, tạm biệt.